We are working on the Wordle project from the WiByte Python curriculum available at www.wibyte.in. Previously, we saw how we could get this entry box and the guess button. And whenever I entered, let's say one word, my guess, and click guess, I would get these nicely placed labels, one label per letter, and also labels on the top row. And this is all happening because I'm using the grid placement. Column is taken as kk is a variable in this for loop, and row is set to 0. Now, clearly, when I make a new guess, for example, let's say music, I would want this to appear on the next row, but right now that won't happen because my row is set to 0. So notice that this music goes and overwrites party. But really what we wanted is that music should have appeared one row below party, and then the subsequent guess should appear one row below music, and so on and so forth. Now, this is very clear why this is not happening, but and the reason is because we have fixed the row to 0 here. So clearly we need to put something different here. We need to make the row change for every guess. Now, in fact, this is quite interesting because this brings us face to face with a new concept, that of using a global keyword. So we will first look at the solution that works, and then we will spend some time trying to understand why it's working and the significance of the global keyword. Now, really think about it. What we need is that instead of fixing the row to 0, we need this row to change every time the guess is made, which means that we need a variable which is, which retains its value, for example, 0 in the first guess, 1 in the second guess, 2 in the third guess, and so on and so forth. Some variable that holds its value across the guesses. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to say, okay, look, let's call it, say, row is equal to, instead of being 0 all the time, I'm going to make it, say, guess num. Now, most importantly, I'm going to, let's say, put this guess num outside the function. Now, this is very important. Please take a note of this. The reason I'm doing this is because I want to have this guess num a global scope and have it retain its value between the different guesses. And we will talk about this a bit later. But for now, just take note that I have defined this guess num. I've set it to 0 outside the function, but I'm using it inside the function. Also, I want to change its value between the guesses because this alone is not sufficient. In fact, you can see it working right now. So if I were to stop this and let's say run this again, let's say I try party. So party comes on the first row. Very good. If I try music after that, it is going to just overwrite as we see here. And that's kind of easy to understand because guess num is 0. It's exactly same as saying row is equal to 0 as we had done earlier. But now we need to modify this guess num between every guess, which means that I need to modify a variable that has been defined outside the function, but the modification must happen inside the function. Because only when the guess is clicked, this function is called, and only at that point I would want guess num to be updated. So for this purpose, I need to tell my interpreter that, look, I need to modify a variable that has a global scope. Hence, I will use a global keyword here. So I say global guess. Now, in simple words, what's happening here is that when this function runs, the global keyword is encountered and the interpreter knows that we are referring to the same guess num that has been defined outside. Remember, a variable defined inside a function is always local. So if I did not have the global keyword, it would not associate my variable here with this variable. But that's what I want. So I call it global guessWord at guess num. And every time a guess is made, I just go and increase this guess num by 1. So I say guess num, say um, guess num is equal to, say, guess num plus 1. Now, of course, you can also write plus equal to 1. That's okay. But make sure that this is happening inside the function. Notice the indentations here. This step is happening inside the function. The global keyword is there and guess num itself has been defined outside the function. Now, let's see this working. In fact, this is really all we need. So now when I say, for example, let's say I try party. So party comes in the first row. Now I try, say, music. Music comes on the second row. I can keep trying this. Say honed comes on the next row. Let's say I try piano, and I'm just trying some 5-letter words just to illustrate that's how the new guesses are coming on the next row. Now, at this point, let's also understand the role of the grid placement method. Remember, the row num itself is going to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. so long as we are in an increasing order and so long as we are less than 99. And why 99? Because entry box is on row number 99. And of course, we were not going to make 100 guesses here. So 99 is just a nice number. Most likely the game gets over in say 5, 6, 7 guesses. In fact, you can put a limit on the number of guesses. Are but the power but the point is that the row number for the guesses is in an increasing order but less than 99, and that ensures that they appear subsequent guesses appear in subsequent rows, and also the rows appear above the entry box and this button, and that's exactly what we wanted. Let's just try one more word. Let's say I say rapid. It's going to appear on the next row, and this is exactly what we wanted. Now notice that the labels are appearing in a very nice structured manner, and that kind of does the job for us. Now, before moving on at this point, let's take a moment to understand some things that can go wrong with this. Let's say I had not done a guess num definition outside, and hence instead of using global guess num, I had just defined, say, guess num is equal to 0. Now, this looks okay. There won't be any syntax error with this. Um, but this is not correct, because what will happen is that every time I click the guess button, this function would get called. My guess num will get defined to 0 because it's not retaining value across the times the guesses are being made. And we can in fact see this if I were to do this now. Let's say I say party. So party appears nicely on row number 0, but then if I go to music, music is going to just overwrite the party, even though I'm doing guess num is equal to guess num plus 1. That's because I'm setting guess num to 0 every time the guess is clicked. In fact, like I said, we needed this value to stay there to be retained across the guesses. That's why this won't work. Now let's just try one more thing. Let's say I did not do this. I had guess num defined outside, but I did not do a global keyword over here. Let's say I did not do this over here. So notice guess num has been defined outside. I can use it. Everything is fine, but I am trying to modify a variable here. That is going to cause me problem, because if I run this now, let's say I say party, say PARTY. I click on guess and notice I get an error here. It says local variable guess num referenced before assignment. Now the reason for this is that, remember, any variable inside a function is actually local. We have not told the interpreter that, look, this is a global variable that we are trying to act. Now when I come to this statement, guess num is equal to guess num plus 1, the interpreter does not know what this guess num refers to. Now the interesting bit is that if I were to, let's say, comment this out, then I won't run into an error, but the code won't work. So let's say I try again party, so it comes on the first row. I try say music. We'll notice that it will get overwritten. Now notice here what's going on. I have a global variable defined outside. I'm using it inside the function. There's no error because that is valid, but that's working because I'm not modifying it. The moment I want to modify this variable inside the function, like I've done now, I must call a global keyword. Now we will spend a little bit more time trying to understand the implications of this, but I hope you're clear on how this works. Let's just see this working once again. So I have a guess num defined outside. I use a global keyword. I'm going to just remove this line here so that doesn't cause confusion. I set row to guess num, so it keeps increasing every guess, and the increase happens because I modify this guess num inside the function. So all of this, is going to work fine. Let's say I try music this time to start with. I get music labels. I get, let's say, party labels. I can keep doing this. Say rapid. It's going to appear on the next line, and so on and so forth. So all my labels are now appearing quite nicely on the next line thanks to the global keyword and the way we have used it here. I hope you found this interesting. In general, if you think this way of learning works for you, where we understand concepts as we build them, we learn Python programming through fun activities, look at our website www.wibyte.in, because we have a lot of material over there of this nature. Take care. Thank you so much. Bye bye.